Hi, I'm Julie Ross.
And I'm Gregory Abbey.
And you're listening to the Parenting Horizons podcast.
Julie is a longtime parent educator and counselor.
And Greg is an actor, writer, and director, and more importantly, a parent just like you.
Through conversations covering a range of different topics, challenges, and roadblocks, we hope to give you a few of Julie's tools that might just help make parenting a little bit easier.
Look, nobody's perfect, and parenting is challenging, to say the least. With a few skills under our belts, though, we might just be able to be good enough parents and enjoy the journey and our children a little bit more in the process.
How are you feeling?
I'm feeling good. As you know, I got my second vaccine a couple of days ago.
You're double vaxxed.
I'm
to
double
the max.
vaxxed
It's
to the
exciting.
max. It's very exciting, especially since it means I'm going to get to go visit my grandson soon.
Right.
Yeah, I was surprised. I heard a lot of horror stories about how, really could have a huge impact for a couple of days.
Right.
I've been very lucky. I mean, I had a little fever, but honestly, I can't complain. I'm so grateful that we have this kind of modern medicine.
It is amazing, that it went so fast.
Amazing. And I'm grateful. I'm going to get to hug people again.
Yes. I know you love to hug.
I'm a hugger.
Well, I got my first one and my second one is next Wednesday. So does that mean we can hug if I have it and you have it? I can't keep up with the rules.
Yes,
Okay.
but we both have to be 2 weeks out.
We have to be 2 weeks out.
2 weeks out
cool.
from both of ours.
I'm looking forward to that. We'll do a video of it. And
I
post
love
it
that.
somehow.
Perfect.
Okay, great. So we are continuing
Mm-hmm.
from the previous podcast where we talked about communication blocks.
Mm-hmm.
There's 10 of them. We ended up going through 4.
Right.
Because we did sort of a longer intro. But just to recap a little bit. So this is episode 10, which is also exciting. This
is
our
exciting.
official 10th
Wow,
episode. We've done 10.
that snuck up on us.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah, it's really cool. So this is episode 10. So you should probably listen to episode 9 first, just because we're covering the first 4 and Julie sort of does a longer introduction to communication blocks. But can we do like a quick just recap of what do you mean? I mean, it's probably a little obvious, but what do you mean by communication blocks? And I thought it was interesting that you said that this is often almost the first thing you teach when someone comes to you or in your parenting groups or in a one-on-one.
Yeah, sure. I mean, communication blocks doesn't ever refer to the idea that a parent is intentionally wanting to cut off communication with their child. I mean, sometimes that may be the case when the child is being a little over the top. But most of the time, parents start out with very good intentions.
Mm-hmm.
They want to impart their values. They want to teach their children something about life. They want to guide. They want to protect, nurture, support. The problem is that the way in which parents go about trying to achieve those goals often has the opposite effect.
Mm-hmm.
And what winds up happening is, and I said this in the last episode, but by about the age of 6, kids are more likely to turn to their peers and the media to get values, to get information about how to make decisions or how to be or what their identity should be.
If the blocks have been built up, you mean?
If the blocks have been built up.
Right. And I think it's interesting that you said even by 6, like that stuff can get put into place, that if the child feels like they're not getting their needs met, even by that age, they can start to turn elsewhere for being attunement, I guess.
Right, exactly. Well, I mean, if you think about it, 6 years isn't very long on the one hand. On the other hand, that's a lot of days.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of opportunities to kind of brick by brick build up the walls.
Right, which is another analogy you said in the previous episode, but I just want to briefly touch on because I thought it was so great that you talked about parenting being a road.
Mm-hmm.
And so as the child travels along the road, they can still look back and be connected to you. But these communication blocks, if you build them up over the years, they're a literal wall between you and the child, right? Am I recapping that correctly?
You're recapping that correctly.
Right.
Yeah. If we think about the road between parent and child, what we want to do as parents is to make sure that that road is as smooth as possible. Because even though our children will travel away from us in terms of independence and independent lives,
And they're supposed to.
And they're supposed to if we do our job right.
Right.
The goal is that if at any point they need us, whether they're middle-aged themselves and we're elderly, or whether they're, just starting their life after college, or whether they're a teenager and they're grappling with the kind of choices that teenagers are faced with around drugs and sex and alcohol. We want them to be able to get back to us, to seek our advice, and to listen for what our values are.
Great. So the ones we covered in the previous episode, we did commanding, advising, placating, and distracting.
Correct.
So we're up to interrogating as a communication block. And now I remember what I wanted to say, that I think it's important because I think you mentioned this in the previous episode, and I want to make sure we go back to it, is that maybe after we go through these or at some point, that you mentioned that if the wall is built, like let's say you're coming to this podcast or a parent is coming to you and you realize, whoa, there's a ton of bricks that have been built up.
Yeah.
You mentioned that there's a way to maybe knock those down.
Yes.
And so I want to talk about that as we go along, because I think that's really important, that some parents might come here and go, oh boy, I've got a wall built. And how do
most parents,
they
once
most do.
Hear these,
well, that's what you said. You said when you give this list of people, most parents go, wow, I don't have anything left. And even as we went through them, I'm like, yeah, I do that. Oh, yeah, I've done that one. So anyway, I want to touch on that.
Sure.
I think it's important. But yeah, we did, you covered commanding, advising, placating, distracting. So those four are in episode 9. So if you can, try to listen to that episode first. So the next one we have is a communication block, or you have, is interrogating. Mm-hmm. And so how does that manifest?
Well, so interrogating happens when parents are after the facts, whatever the facts of the child's story are. Mm-hmm. So it could be, what happened.
Or if, let's say someone came home late, they've broken curfew, and you want to know where they are, or what's been going on. So I would imagine it could be there. Where have you been? Who were you with? Why are you so late? Is that an example of how it could
that's a good example, and it can range, Greg, from that. Where were you, and how come you're home so late, and were you smoking pot, and all of that kind of thing, to the very what seems benign, which is how was your day?
Oh wow, okay, interesting, because you intuitively think of it as a real interrogation, like
right,
on Law and Order, but you're saying it can be a casual interrogation too.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And all of those little in-between places where, for example, a child comes home complaining about something that happened at school, and the parent says, well, what did you do?
Right.
And what did they do next? And here's the problem when we get tangled up in wanting the facts, is that facts don't matter.
What do you mean by that?
I know that's crazy. It's like, wait, what? What do you mean? Of course facts matter. The problem is that everybody's facts about any particular situation are unique to them. So, what happened when the child is, talking about whatever, something at school, that's according to that child. So in that sense, we're after the wrong thing as parents when we are digging for what the facts are. What we really want to go after is the feelings, and I think we've said that in a previous episode. What the child experiences when we interrogate is that I think it was said by Brenda Euland, maybe, that when we interrogate our children, it's as if the children think that we don't have a life. We need them for entertainment.
Right.
So we've been sitting around all day just staring blankly at the wall, right? And they come home, how was your day? What did you do today? Did you sit with so-and-so at school? Mm-hmm. Did you go out for pizza afterwards? And it's like, get a life.
I can just feel the kid getting irritated as you're doing those lists. And that's why there was like, I don't want to talk about it, Mom.
Right. If you get that many words, most of the time you get, how was your day?
Fine. Good.
Or, why were you out so late? Oh, Dad, come on.
So in this sort of more casual way where like your child's come home from school and it's, how was your day? What did you do? So what is the reverse of that? Or what's the flip side of that? What do you do instead if you want to, elicit some communication from them? And I can imagine sometimes you're just not going to, especially if they're teens and preteens. But What should the
Or
approach
even
be?
if they're elementary age kids. I
Right.
mean, the reality is that question often stops everybody cold. It's been a long day. There's a lot that happened in your day.
Mhm.
If my husband says, "How was your day?" I'm like, "It was fine." I'm not going to repeat it. I'm not going to go through. I'm done with that part of it. I want to go on to the next thing.
Well, it's also boring to do kind of a book report anyway, right?
Right.
A book report of facts is what you're saying. And
Right.
So the point is you're more interested in the feelings if you want to try to connect with the child. So what do you say instead if let's say they've just come home from school?
Well, here's what's great. And I want to talk both about that kind of benign, mild form of communication block, the interrogating, and then I want to talk about the more accusatory form where you're saying, "Where were you and why were you out so late?" and that kind of thing. So if we're talking about kind of the benign form, like how was your day, parents need to remember that communication isn't just words. Words are only 7% of communication.
Yeah, you've said that before, which I
Yeah.
find amazing. And the
Yeah.
other percent is body language, facial expression.
Right. So body language and facial expression are one thing. And then we've got tone of voice. And then we've got words. Body language is 55%
Wow.
of communication. So when you see your child for the first time after school, you know how they're feeling.
Mm-hmm.
If you're reading their body language, because you've got 55% of the communication that's there. So they either have an upbeat, happy attitude, or they have a down attitude, or they have an agitated attitude. You don't have to ask, "How was your day?" You can say, "Oh boy, seems like something happened at school today." And that's not a communication block. That's an open-ended statement that gives them permission to talk to you about what it
I
is.
keep going back to curiosity because that's what it made me think of and how important, it always feels like there's some repetitive themes that come through. So even in the way you just said that made me think like, oh, okay, so you're coming from a curious place.
Right.
As opposed to interrogating. So you're saying you've read the language and you're like, hey, you seem pretty wiped out. Like, let's say they come through the door and they seem super tired. As opposed to like, what happened today? You're tired.
Right.
Is that the idea?
Correct. That's absolutely right. It's a very empathetic approach, right? That stands to open them up instead of shut them down. Because if we do it the other way, Greg, if we come at them with, "Wow, you look really tired. What do you have to be tired about? Are you, what happened at school today?" They are likely to say, "Oh, you just don't understand," and go back to their rooms and slam their door. Or to grunt, or, nothing happened. So we really want to open it up with this attention to what the underlying feeling is that we are receiving from someone through their body language. And if tone of voice is added, that's better. Wow, it seems like it was really irritating,
Oh, you're picking up on the child. You mean if you're open and receptive to what they're giving you, so you're saying their body language, their tone of voice, you mean?
Right.
That you can pick up on where they might be emotionally,
Right.
which then can guide you in terms of how you approach them.
Right, exactly. Now I want to cover the more challenging, I would say.
Before we go ahead, can I just ask you one question?
Sure.
So a lot of times the child comes home, and of course the parent wants to know. But what if the child doesn't give you anything, which you said even can go to elementary, and they don't want to talk, but you can tell there's something wrong. What do you do then? Because you don't keep pushing, obviously, right?
Right, exactly. Well, there are a couple of different ways that you can approach it. One is that you can talk about your day.
Right.
You can say, "Wow, I had a really rough day today." And then don't say any more than that. Don't overwhelm. But then they might ask, "Well, what do you mean? What was rough?" And you can say, "Well, here's what happened. It felt really challenging. And yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling kind of bummed about it." And, it could even be something that recognizes or reflects in some way or resonates with what you're kind of seeing in the child's body language so that they feel more comfortable opening up. The second component of this, Greg, and I say it all the time, that, effective parenting involves two things: technique and timing. So if your kid's not ready to talk about it, it's likely that you trying to get them to talk about it is just going to put up bricks in that wall.
Sure. So that makes sense. And if you're in tune to them, you can sense like, oh, the child needs some space.
Right.
And you might be able to circle back later when some of that's shifted, right? So maybe later on when they come out of the room or they've had time to decompress. So I love that. That's really important. The two things that make it effective are timing. What was the other thing you said?
Technique and
timing. Timing seems like a big one. That
timing
makes a
is
lot of sense.
huge. I talk about timing all the time with my clients because they may be doing the right thing, but at the wrong moment.
Sure.
And then it's the wrong thing.
Well, yeah, because the impulse can be totally correct, but if they're not there to hear it, that's a way you may put up a brick.
Right. And, as you were, and that segues nicely into, the teenager who comes home late past curfew.
And I've been here, and it's hard because you're angry, you're upset, you probably have a lot of anxiety, you might be stressed out.
Right.
So it's easy. You've said all of these are really easy. That's what makes them hard, but you launch into where the hell have you been?
Right.
Did you smoke pot? Where did you get the pot? Whatever it is. Do you
Dad,
have a beer in your back pocket right now?
Dad, I did not smoke pot. Yeah, but where did you get it? No,
Right.
I didn't get it. I didn't smoke. Yeah, well, where did you get it?
You shine the big spotlight on them.
Precisely.
So the impulse is totally understandable.
It's understandable.
I'm sure most of us have been in that position. I have an older son, so,
right.
we've gone down that road a little bit. So
For sure.
So why is it, I know it's difficult not to do it. Can you talk a little bit about what happens when you sort of treat the situation that way?
Well, again, it blocks communication. But the main problem in that scenario is, I would say, it's not really a good technique to use interrogation, but the main problem is timing. So they come home and they're late. They know they're late.
Often, yeah.
They know they've been doing what they've been doing. They know you're worried. So we don't have to grind that in that moment. What we need to do is give them a second, say, we're going to talk about this tomorrow morning.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the timing piece of it. That also allows you as the adult to get your head together, to figure out, what's the most important thing to focus on?
Well, especially in those moments, and I think this is true in any relationship, is like when you're at that emotional height, it's never a great time to start it.
Never.
And I think it makes so much sense. What you're saying is that if you can step away from that, so you've set up a boundary around it, saying, hey, we're going to talk about this tomorrow. I would imagine you could also say, because you often talk about this, and this is a recurring theme that I'm getting in my body the more we do this, that you focus on yourself, your own feelings, as opposed to attacking. So it could, tell me if I'm wrong, but not that you would go on long. I want you to know I'm really disappointed that this has gone on, and we're going to talk about it tomorrow morning.
Right. And even maybe more important, the idea that I was really worried when you didn't come home on time.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to talk about how we can handle that moving forward so that I don't go through unnecessary anxiety around this.
It also just sort of makes sense that, if you go on the attack, and we've all done that, and I think instinctually it feels that way, but that's going to shut them down for sure.
Right.
Anyone who feels attacked is going to get defensive, crawl in a hole, go back.
Yeah.
But if you make it about yourself and your own feelings, because often what you say, I think what you said is true, is that they know, they feel bad. But a lot of times when people feel vulnerable, they'll put up a wall or bravado to protect against that. And I think,
of course,
and tell me if this is wrong, but if you do go on the attack, that's just going to get bigger.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's normal when, as a human being, when we feel our ego being attacked, to defend ourselves by putting armor on.
Mm-hmm.
So the more armor, if you think about it this way, the more communication has been blocked, because you can't get through that armor with your teenager or with anybody, but with your teenager, with your child. So it's about figuring out what's going to be the most effective communication and timing that effective communication so that the defenses are as low as possible.
So let's cut to the next morning. So then what's the approach? So you've managed to not unload on them, even though you really wanted to, and it's 2 a.m. and
Right.
You're like, go to bed. You really I was really worried and I'm disappointed. This is not right. We're going to talk about it in the morning. So cut to the next morning. What's the approach then? So it's not interrogation, but aren't you like, hey, what happened? I was really worried. What happened last night? Like, well, what do you say? So there, you might get some answers.
Well, with teenagers, getting answers is never easy. But I think you're exactly right. I think there's a difference between what went on there.
Well, again, it's kind of
versus
some curiosity.
where were you?
Right.
What were you doing?
Well, tone of voice. Even as you're talking, I'm like, that's tone of voice, right?
Right.
And approaching with, you talk about this all the time, approaching with empathy. So if you're able to work through your feelings, so you're not upset when you say to them, what happened last night? I was so worried about you. What happened?
Exactly. It's so funny. I have a client who told me a story about her kid who's a teenager, and mom got together with a friend of hers. Mom got together with mom's friend.
Okay.
Right? They went out, socially distanced, but they hadn't seen each other in forever. So they were talking and talking and talking and talking. 10 o'clock rolls around and mom gets a phone call from her kid saying, "So mom, where are you?" And mom said, "Oh,
I lost track of time. We're
I lost
catching
track
up.
of time.
We're drinking wine.
Yeah, I lost track of time. I'll come home right now." And the kid was like, "No, you don't have to come home right now. I just was worried about where you are."
Wow, that's a pretty evolved kid.
Oh, yeah, he's kind of spectacular. But yeah, and so, I think if we can present it to our children, generally speaking, about being out or, the kinds of things that we might interrogate about, that it's coming out of concern and love.
Right.
And not out of a desire to criticize or punish.
So approach is really important.
I think approach is very important.
It's everything.
It's everything. In everything, it's everything. I mean, I think how we approach things, it's one of the reasons I'm such a big believer in taking a step back, pushing the pause button, zippy the lippy, and think it through. Script yourself a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Most things with kids are not an emergency, unless they are. And sometimes that's true. Sometimes they are an emergency, but most of the time we don't need to interrogate. We don't need to jump on it. We don't need to, from the last episode, command or advise. Most of the time we have an opportunity to think through what exactly will be the most effective technique to use.
Yeah, it seems like there's probably very, very few, unless it's a physical emergency, they're in danger somehow, that you always have more time than you think to sort of think it through. So, okay, that's great. Let's see, what's next? Moralizing. What's that mean? How is that a communication block? Moralizing.
Moralizing is when we try to make things into this lesson where we say, for example, "Oh, honey, I know it was hard. Every day is a new beginning. Every cloud has a silver lining."
Right. If
Get
you have
some
lemons, just make lemonade.
Exactly. My mother used to say, and I think a lot of moms used to, have said this, it's a learning experience or it's a growth experience.
Now, why is that so bad? It sounds so super patronizing as you're doing it.
Because it is.
Yes, it is. Okay.
Because,
Well, it also feels like it's not dealing with the reality, maybe, too, of what's going on. And again, all of these sort of seem to kind of connect back to not acknowledging feeling or reality, or like really what happened. If you're like, I know you feel bad, but this experience is a lemon, and we're going to turn it in. You can turn it into lemonade. In fact, let's go make some lemonade right now.
Right, exactly. And I think you're right. All of these communication blocks that we're talking about, generally the path leads back to, not tolerating either our own feelings and being willing to sit with them, or not tolerating the child's feelings, not tolerating the kid having to work through some of the bumps in the road sometimes, right? That exist for everybody. That idea of happiness is kind of a myth.
Right.
When we say, "Oh, I just want my child to be happy." Really? I mean, that's not really a possibility. It's an impossible dream. It's aiming way too high. It's not that you want them to
But
be
what should
unhappy.
I feel like, because we did a whole episode on this that I
Right.
hope people listen to. I think it's called Put on a Happy Face. What should the goal be as a parent?
I think it's called Suck It Up.
The episode is called Suck It Up. Yeah, you're correct.
I think
That's right.
so.
Suck
But
it
you're
up,
right.
kid.
Put on a happy face runs throughout.
Yes.
that.
Well, this is the idea of, because this one in particular, this moralizing feels connected to, this uncomfortable feeling, this hardship they've gone through, this, let's make it all better. Let's put on a happy face.
Right.
There's a silver lining here. So if the goal shouldn't be like I want my kid to be happy, because that's almost of course everyone wants their child to be happy, but that's an unattainable goal. What should the goal be?
I think the goal should be, I want my child to be able to embrace and tolerate all of the different feelings that go with the human experience. Yeah. I mean,
I'm going to put that on a t-shirt. We'll put that in our gift shop when we open it.
okay. I love it. It needs to be in sparkly rainbow colors.
Okay, sure. I think we should definitely do a sparkly rainbow color. Yeah, that's great. That's wonderful.
I mean, listen, happiness is great.
Of course.
It feels great when we're happy. But then if we think that's the state that we should be in always, all the other states that we are in feel pretty crummy in comparison, as opposed to, oh yeah, today's not a great day. I'm feeling kind of bummed. Okay. I'll get through it.
So moralizing seems about connected to this sort of accepting where they are, or being there with where they are, if it's an uncomfortable feeling, because it sounds like moralizing can be like, how do we wipe this away a little bit?
Right. And there's just an inherent disconnect, I think, between someone who is saying, put on a happy face, or, every cloud has a silver lining, and what the other person is actually feeling. I've heard it a lot during the pandemic, where...
Because there's so many struggles, you mean?
Because there's so many struggles, and one person in a family may be at one stage of the grief process, which is finding meaning, right? So that's finding meaning. It's every cloud has a silver lining. Make lemonade out of lemons. There's a silver lining here. But when that gets conveyed to the other people in the family, who may be at anger,
Sure.
or who may be at denial, or who may be at bargaining, then it's just this emotional disconnect.
Total dissonance, right?
Yeah.
Because that's not where they are.
And it leaves that person feeling, the person who's having the uncomfortable feelings, it leaves that person feeling very isolated
Alone,
and
yeah.
very alone. And, of course, in a pandemic or in any grief experience, it's inherently an isolating experience,
Mhm.
because everybody does it differently. The grief process is different for everybody in
Mhm.
terms of what stages you can be at. So, when a kid is experiencing something that is for them negative, for them sad, for them uncomfortable in some way, for someone to, chirp
Try
in
to
with,
tidy it up. Yeah.
it's like, wow, thanks a lot for leaving me
It's
alone.
very punchable, just the way you just did that. It's like, yeah. But even when you started it,
Right.
as you were sort of, hey, let me just drop this Hallmark card on you. It's like, shut up.
Right? Even as adults, we
Of
feel
course,
that,
of
Greg.
course.
Even as adults,
Okay, great. So the next one you have is psychologizing. And I have a feeling I'll talk about this one a little bit, but psychologizing, how does that, am I saying it right?
Yeah. You're
How does
saying
that
it.
manifest as a communication block for your child?
Psychologizing, honestly, it's not. And let me just say this. Let me pause to say this. None of these are specific to the parent-child relationship.
Meaning
All
this is
of these-
through any relationship.
Any relationship.
Marriage, work relationship.
Yeah. So the next time you're at a cocktail party and you're stuck talking to someone who's really horrible, pull a communication block out of the air and they'll go away.
Right.
It's quite effective.
But also on the flip side, because I have some friends that are contacted me that don't have kids that are really, really enjoying the podcast.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of these can work in, like I said, your marriage, relationship with your older parents or whatever it is. So anyway, okay,
Yeah,
so
absolutely.
so
So
psychologizing, how does that
psychologizing,
manifest?
psychologizing again comes from a positive motivation to talk about feelings,
Mm-hmm.
to engage with another person's feelings.
Mm.
How it manifests itself is when we say, well, how do you feel about that? And why do you feel that way? And all of a sudden it's like, you moron, I'm showing you how I feel about that. What do you
Right.
mean, why do I feel that way? Are you an idiot? You would feel this way too if it happened to you, right? So that's the response that comes out when somebody has been psychologized with.
Yeah, and I think it can feel kind of artificial, and I say this because my wife is a psychotherapist, and she's actually amazing and wonderful. It can come out occasionally, but mostly it's great, and she's incredible with our kids. But if you suddenly feel like you're in the chair, like you're in a therapist office, but this
Right.
person is not your therapist, that can feel kind of like moralizing. It can feel condescending,
Yes.
but it can also feel disconnected when someone's like, "Yeah, let's dive into that. What do you feel about that?" It's like, "No, you're my friend or you're my partner. I'm not seeing a psychiatrist or I'm not in my therapist office."
Right.
Is that the idea? I mean, because that's what I feel when I read that one.
Yeah. I mean, I often describe it to people by saying, just imagine that you've had the worst day ever, right? They took too much out of your bank for a payment for a mortgage, and you had a fender bender on your way home, and the kids have been particularly awful that day, and you are just fuming, and you want to run away from home, right? As the adult, you're like, I want to run away from home. And your spouse or your partner or, a friend comes in and you're like, oh my gosh, I've had the worst day ever. It is just awful. And they say, well, how do you feel about that? How are you feeling about your day? And well, why do you feel that way? I mean, can you just hear the disconnect? You want to punch them.
Right.
It's like, go away. You're adding to my bad day. You're just adding. We should be at least as fluent in body language reading as we are in somebody's, if somebody says with their tone of voice, even, oh, I can't believe the day I've had, right? So that 38% of the communication there for our listeners, because they didn't see my body language,
right,
is
how it's physically manifesting.
Right. But they hear, I had the worst day. I was like, wow, my gosh, it's just been a horrible day. They can imagine how I'm feeling.
Sure.
I don't have to say, wow, I'm feeling really irritated and disappointed and concerned. I don't have to use the feeling words, right?
Sure.
To convey.
You made it really
that.
Clear.
Right.
And then it's about being
tongue.
there with maybe, say, the child as opposed to maybe fixing that you're just sitting with them. The other thing I want to bring up, because as you were talking, it just made me think, and you mentioned this on the previous one too, that because some parents, you might feel like, oh, I'm supposed to be connected to feelings. So you try to do this. And you've said this many, many times that stuff is hard. You're not going to do it perfectly. And that's okay. You're going to mess up. Maybe you will do psychoanalyzing because you didn't talk about feelings before, so now you're trying to. And why is the kid shutting you down? Well, because you sound like Freud and not their parent. But that for all of these, it's really a practice, right?
Yeah, it is. And I would much rather, one of the things that you can do when someone's having an emotional moment, rather than ask them how they're feeling or why they're feeling that way, is you can just be present, as you said before, Greg, be present and say, tell me more.
Yeah, you say that one a lot too. That's going in our gift shop too. Tell me more. We're going to put that on a shirt.
I love that too. That doesn't have to be sparkly letters. I don't know.
We should have a sparkly version of all of them, but we can. I want to like 3 of those because tell me more is a big one. You talk about that all. I love that one. And it's really about curiosity. So if you see them in that place, it's tell me more.
Yes.
Right.
Tell me more. And they might say, I'm not going to tell you anything. And you say, okay, well, I'm here if you need me.
Great.
It's an open forum. It's an open field. Come to me if you need me.
Great. Okay, that's a good one. So, this one's I'm not great at this one. Using sarcasm.
Oh yeah.
And it's hard because that's usually like a buried anger, right? Or a form of anger. It's not even buried. It's just a way. But I don't know. Why do you have that on there?
Well, sarcasm is often the same as or used parallel with ridicule. So it's funny, the other day, my husband and I were talking about when the pandemic, when things open back up, whatever that means, that we'd like to go to a comedy club, right? But a lot of comics use sarcasm. So if I don't know if our listeners have ever been to a comedy club, but like if you get up to go to the bathroom, right? When you're in the audience,
they're going to go after you.
Yeah, they're going to go after you, especially if they are poor comics and don't have good material. Right. They're likely to say, oh, you couldn't wait to pee, must have had too much coffee today or whatever, right? The goal of sarcasm when we use it is to make the other person feel ridiculous. So that they will change their behavior.
So you're basically, this gets into shaming.
Oh, 100%. Awful. I remember once, for some reason, this memory popped into my head a couple days ago. I don't know why, but I remember when my daughter was young and we were in the park with one of her friends and their mother and another friend and their mother. I didn't know the others too well, but the little girl, that not the one that my daughter knew, the little girl went up to her mother and said, "Mom, can I have some ice cream?" And the mom was like, "Yeah, absolutely." And the daughter stood there and the mother said, "Where are you going to get the money?" Oh. So mean, right?
I'd say that was pretty mean.
Pretty mean. And it's sarcastic. It's like, yeah, I'm not paying for that. Kind of thing. It can be, oh, I suppose it's going to kill you to sit next to your brother today at the dining room table, right? It's that I'm going to ridicule you. I'm going to make fun of you.
Right. And it's really destructive. I mean, it's and it can be like some of these things too. You think they might be effective, and you know what? The child might stop doing it, but now you've lowered self-esteem,
Oh, 100%. I remember thinking about that instant when it happened in the park all those years ago and thinking, that poor child's self-esteem. I mean, what is that? Where is that going?
Well, and also, especially because they're so, I'm sure with that child, it sounds young, like they're sort of open.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that sort of shuts that. I mean, again, tell me if this is wrong. I'm kind of thinking through it as you're talking, but it sort of shuts that down, and that really feels like a brick, because if you get your butt kicked in that way, you're not going to come back, right?
Right. And I think you said it well, because you said the word shame. I mean, and that's what happens. It can put kids into a shame spiral, and it's very hard to dig out from that. Shame is one of the most painful human emotions that exists. Mm-hmm. And it may extend past human beings. I don't even know. But, when I think of a dog who's been shamed,
sure, yeah.
And they have their tail between their legs and they're all kind of crunched up, it's powerful, and it affects animals, creatures,
right,
human beings long term.
We did a whole episode about this, but then it also affects going down the road, all sorts of relationships, right? So that feels like a really big brick. And I'm glad to know that I started this by saying, oh, I do that one all the time. I've gotten better at it. I try to be funny, but, I can be funny with it, but it's a fine line with sarcasm, because sometimes it's fun and funny and I'm kind of kidding with my kids. But that can easily be misconstrued, and it could also easily, especially if you're angry about something, can slip into, like you said, ridicule, which feels like a big brick.
Right. And listen, I'm a big believer in humor in parenting. It's not something I can teach. I think either you have a sense of humor or you don't have a sense of humor. Mm-hmm. I think we just have to be careful that it is not sarcasm, that it doesn't slip into that ridicule.
Yeah, and I also think with humor, just because I do that a lot with my kids, and I think mostly it goes okay, but I've even noticed with one of my kids that is getting older, it's sort of recognizing the moment. Like, yes, this isn't time to joke. And I've even gotten that on a few occasions where, like, it's not funny, Dad. Right. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's a red flag. And I'm like, okay, let's switch this approach around. I mean, I think it can be really helpful in a lot of different situations, but yeah, you just have to be careful, I guess.
Yeah, I think you do. I think you need to correctly assess your audience. Correctly assess, where's the kid at right now? Where's the adult at right
Mhm.
now? Is this something that, are they feeling prickly? Are they feeling emotional? Is this going to land okay?
Well, it's like you said, it seems like with all of these, this comes back to really reading the child.
Yeah.
Physically, tone of voice, emotionality, really what's going on, and then that can adjust your approach to it.
Yeah, right.
Okay, great. So the next one, we have two more. Being a know-it-all. I mean, this one seems a little obvious, right? But that
Yeah, being a know-it-all is using too many words. It's when we get too involved in our own story, when we, pull out that big book of wisdom and, say, when I was your age, I had to walk uphill in the snow for 20 miles with nothing but hot potatoes in my pockets to keep me warm.
Well, it's funny because I guess it's not as obvious to me because I think what you just said, and you've said this one before, it's like you just said too many words.
Too many words.
And a lot of times you talk about, I hear this often in the groups, like parents will go on and on and on about the same thing. And that's a brick because the child is just shutting down, right? And you'll talk often about like stopping. Like
yes.
you don't have to go on and pontificate and remake the same. And believe me, again, I've done all of these. You making the same point 3 to 4 times over.
Right.
I mean, my children won't, because you'll hear that one. You'll be like, I got it. You've already said that like frickin' 10 times.
Exactly.
But that's part of being a know-it-all, right? Like,
right.
Let me tell you, and this is what it is, and I'm going to give you another example of it, and here's another example of it.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
They're like, please kill me.
You know what happens, I think, in those cases, Greg, is that we, parent and child alike, get caught in a kind of a negative feedback loop.
What does that mean?
Well, so we start out with some morsel of wisdom, right, that we need to impart from our big book of wisdom, and we give them that morsel. But the way we give it to them is a communication block. So they start to shut down. We see that shutdown and we assume we haven't gotten our point across. So that, I better give 2 or 3 more morsels of wisdom.
That's how it plays out.
Right. And then they shut down even more. And then we're like, wow, I'm really not making an impact at all.
I better keep going. Let me tell one more anecdote about this and maybe they'll get it. And by the end, they're under a blanket on the floor. And you're like, man, I guess we'll have to keep going.
It's so true. It's so true. And, it's so challenging because it is a feedback loop. We think we're reading the child correctly.
Yeah, and you said this about all of them. Like the intention is not necessarily negative. The parent is thinking like I'm trying to be helpful.
Yeah.
So your advice around that would be just to keep it, a lot of times it's keep it simpler. You say zippy the lippy a lot. Does that refer to something like this?
Yes. I mean, I also tell parents, specifically parents of tweens and teens, to keep it to 13 words or less.
Wow.
Right? So that means you have to kind of think it through because that's not necessarily easy to do. And even with younger children, there are a lot of scripts that we use for setting limits, for helping children learn to problem solve, for building self-esteem with younger children. All of those have limited amount of words. It's not quite 13 words or less. It may be 20 words. The goal is to keep it as short as possible. Kids get it more than you realize. So we need to keep it short and sweet and to the point.
That's so important.
It really is.
That seems like a big one, what you just said. That's really, because I didn't even realize, 13 words feels really short, but your point is, and that makes sense too. It seems like what you're saying is like, there's only so much the child can take in.
Right. And, you can always pause at the end of 12 or 13 words and give them time to give feedback or whatever. We don't have to, not everything in life has to be. Yeah.
In the one torrent of 5-minute monologue, you mean?
Right.
Which we all have I want to get in every thought and feeling I have about this.
Oh, yeah.
And they lose you after like the 30-second mark, I guess.
Oh, yeah. If they last 30 seconds, right? It's let's give them a little bit of credit. There's always an opportunity to go back and circle back, as we've talked about before, if we think that they really didn't take anything in. But assume that they did. Just assume that they did, because otherwise we run the risk of talking so much that
you lose them completely.
And they erase the first things that you said.
Great. So the last one, and then there's a couple of other things I want to cover. Negating. Oh, well, you have written here, you don't need to be embarrassed. That's not embarrassed. Oh, wow. Well, so yeah. So
right.
Negating their feeling or their experience.
Right, exactly.
In the hope that what? They won't have the feeling? Or you're trying to minimize it for them? How is this a block?
Negating negates their reality. So it says, I'm right and you're wrong. You're not valid. I think about it in terms of negating feelings and negating facts. So negating feelings, I'm going to talk about negating facts in an adult way in a minute, but negating feelings is, you don't have to be embarrassed by that. Why are you angry? You don't need to be angry about that. Oh, you're not angry, or you're not sad. Those are crocodile tears. And, that again, very isolating when we feel as human beings that people don't get us.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, most of human experience is really just wanting to be seen.
Sure. By
somebody else. And then negating facts. I had a funny experience with this myself the other day. we have a nice little roof deck. So I was heading up there to sit and, have some tea and take in the beauty that is early spring. And my husband was already up there and had texted me, it's a little chilly up here. You might want to bring a sweater. So I had a sweater on, and I met one of the neighbors, and he said, "Oh, you're going to be too hot in that. It's really hot upstairs."
New Yorkers.
And I said, "Okay, well, actually, I have something on underneath this. I can take this off if I need to." And he said, "Well, you're going to be hot." And I got up there, it was freezing. And he came up later and he had put a sweater on. He goes, "You know what? You were right." I'm like,
Thanks.
Thank you
Thanks,
so
Dad.
much. So thank you so much. And for me as an adult, it's infuriating, right? Especially as a cis het female. It's infuriating to be told that I'm going to have a different experience than the one I'm having, or that I should be having a different experience than the one I'm having. And what it does for kids is that it makes them doubt their own reality, their own sensations, whether they're emotional sensations or whether they are physical sensations. So I once heard, the way I talk about this with kids is, when it's cold out, or at least you think so as the adult, and you go outside and you've made your child put on a jacket and they take it off. It's hot out here. And you say, "It's not hot. Put your jacket on." That's negating. There's an old joke that goes, the definition of a jacket is what you have to wear when your mother is cold.
Right. I've done that one 1,000 times, though.
1,000
You're going to
times.
get sick. You're going to get sick.
I know. I think my son walked around, throughout their entire high school in short sleeves.
Yeah, teenage boys are like adverse to weather.
Or teenagers, period.
Right.
I mean, I wouldn't even confine it to
I guess you're right. I'm just thinking because my son was more specifically like that. So that's why I say that. But you're right. Teenagers in general.
Yeah. Because my son was just like, "I'm not cold." And I was like,
"No, you are. You are.
You are.
You are
You
cold.
will be.
Mom, are you cold? Maybe you're cold." "Yes, I am. And I want you to put on a jacket for me."
Exactly. I mean, I think kids, just speaking to that, have a kind of internal heater generators that run at their metabolism is probably higher than adults. And that probably makes them run a little bit warm.
But the main thing is, like, this is why you call it negating. It's negating their experience, whether it's something as simple as like the jacket, but more emotionally. All right. So those are the 10. I hope everyone listens to episode 9 too. So a couple things quickly. We talk about the circle back a lot in episode 9, but can you just briefly talk about the circle back? What is the circle back and why it's so important?
Mm-hmm. So the circle back refers to the idea that it's not what you said or did. It's what you do or say after what you've already done or said.
So if you've screwed up some of these blocks, You've done it. You've done a screw up, which we all do.
We all have, and we continue to screw up. I mean, it's so hard to erase them from our vocabulary, Greg, and I don't expect that of any parent. We were raised with them. The world uses them. It's very hard to eliminate them. But what becomes important is recognizing when we've shut somebody down. Because the truth is, too, you might use one of these and say, well, I ask my child how school was and they tell me all about their day.
Mm-hmm. Great.
So what we know from that is that it is not serving as a communication block in that particular instance on that particular day.
Mm-hmm.
So the circle back refers to when we realize that one of these things shut our kid down, shut our partner down, and we come back to it after,
a period of time.
A period of time. And again, that's kind of relative. But come back to it and say, you know what, I realize I probably shut down communication there. And I just want you to know that if you want to talk about it, I'm open to it. And I'm sorry. It's okay to say you're sorry. And it models very good skills, actually, to be able to say you're sorry if you've made a mistake.
Well, we've talked about this one a lot. I think we could talk about it every episode. I feel like you've said that this is everything, right?
Everything.
And that how redemptive it is.
Right. And at the beginning of this episode, you said, what if...
Well, that's the last thing I was going to say. So let's say, because as you were talking, I'm like, oh, this must be a circle back. And it could be a really big circle back. So let's say you've built up these bricks. You've heard this podcast or someone has come to you. You've listed them and the person's like, oh my gosh, I do all of these. My child doesn't speak to me. I have a huge wall.
Yes.
So you do a big circle back to start.
Yeah.
How do you start over?
Well, there's a lot of different ways to start over. I know one family, the parents both came to me and they decided to educate their family about communication blocks. And they sat down and they had some family meetings and they said, they printed out the list of communication blocks. They said, here's what's going on. The kids took to it like ducks to water. And the kids then would say, hey, I think that's kind of a communication block.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying, I think it's a communication block.
So everyone got on a page with what it was. So
right.
That's a way to do it.
So that's a way to do it. Another way to do it is to say, I'm going to be trying something new. I realize that I may have been cutting you off in some of your thoughts and feelings, and I want to apologize for that. And I'm going to try to do better in the future. And then just adopting, you don't even have to necessarily in a big way circle back to like all the mistakes that we make as parents, but you can just turn over a new leaf and you can start recognizing them, the blocks, and start listening. Really improving your listening skills is going to be the key to almost everything. Whether you're listening, quote unquote, to the child's body language, or whether you are listening to their tone of voice or to their words. But when we listen, that's the redemptive part. That's the part that recreates both people. Thanks for listening to the Parenting Horizons podcast.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share with your family and friends. And if you'd like to hear more about Julie's work, join one of her parenting groups, or see about individual counseling, please visit parentinghorizons.com. Or you can email Julie at julie.ross@parentinghorizons.com.
See you next time.